me turn on my mic. Alright, now I should be audible. Okay, we are back with another one. Today we're going to be talking everything Ekko and Jinx. Ekko and Jinx. Before we kick off, we just gotta wait for some more people to filter through. I don't want to be talking to the wall here. So we'll get started as soon as we have a little bit of a crowd. You know what I'm saying? Right. Am I even live? Yo, YouTube, where's my stream? Fam. If you do happen to pop in, just say hi. For now, I'm just checking where my stream is because I am not seeing it pop up on YouTube and it's weirding me out. Let's check whether we're live. Okay. That's why. Right. Today we are talking Ekko and Jinx. I think the stream was just private, so I just unprivate it. I just made it unprivate. So today we're chatting Ekko and Jinx. Ekko and Jinx. I'm just gonna check whether the stream actually did go live because YouTube's been trolling me. I think I went live just before this and something weird was happening with the stream, so I just decided, let me start again. Okay, we are live. Okay, we're cooking. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be chatting about Ekko and Jinx. There's also a really cool video by a content creator called Schnee. Well, I can't call it a cool video. I haven't really watched it. I watched the intro and I realized that I'm editing a similar video in production right now, so it's going to be really cool to see my thoughts versus his. But for now, let's just see if we can get a few more people in here before we start really dissecting alles. You know what I'm saying? How's everyone doing so far? How's everyone going? Just hit me up in the chat. I'm checking the chat right now. How's everyone doing? If YouTube will show me the chat. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna get it kicking. We're just gonna get started because I don't want to keep the people who are here waiting for nothing. You get me? Alright, so we have Jinx and Ekko. And these two are in somewhat a very weird relationship. So the relationship starts very early on with the promo material for Arcane. So this doesn't actually happen in the series, but we get to see Ekko and Jinx interacting. We get some interaction with them, and they are kids, bro, and they go around Piltover and they just do kid stuff, I guess. You know, I really like this shot of Jinx with the firelights coming out. This is a foreshadow that Ekko and her are going to have some sort of relationship around this thing called the firelights later on. But it's really cool that they hinted at it long before we even knew what the firelights were, because this came out before Arcane did as a precursor to it. So this was really nice. What's also nice about this shot that I think is really cool is that it's a reference to Gordon Parks' photography. I'm not sure if you'll know Gordon Parks, but he's a photographer and his shot is at the bottom. He shot this in 1963 or so. He'd go around shooting scenes of, was it New York? Either New York, some city in the United States. He was a really good photographer. He would kind of try and capture the black life at that time and get a really honest, get a very honest view of that through photography. Of course, he'd pose people up, he'd make people pose for the shots, but like he'd give a very cool narrative about what was going on in that time. So if you can see at the top, his work has been referenced before, and if that shot looks similar to you, it means you've seen Kendrick's Element video, directed by a guy named Jonas Lindstrom. So Jonas Lindstrom and Kendrick Lamar took a lot of Gordon Parks' works and they reworked them for his video Element, which is meant to explore Kendrick's life as a character where he's kind of just exploring himself. He's like deciding like, okay, I have this violent side of me and I have this rapper side of me, and the two worlds are kind of colliding, but where does that narrative lead? Where does that narrative leave me as Kendrick Lamar? So that's what Element is kind of what about. That's what Element is about. So that's really cool. Then we have Ekko and Jinx here in the corner. You can see, you know, we got the shot with them and them just idolizing Vi. This shot is just to show that everyone in the city loves Vi. She is the celebrity and she's the child leader. She's the best fighter, so that makes her pretty cool. There's Ekko and Jinx. Yo, is it just me or is Ekko always sad? Like, look at this frown on his face, man. Okay, and then we see the two of them later on try and practice the same moves that they see from Vi. Later on in the same music video, Ekko pulls her finger at the enforcers. And they ride this bike contraption that we see pop up again in season 2 episode 7, which is the Jinx and Ekko episode. So that's Arcane just being a series that likes continuity in terms of what they do. Alright, so they pull the finger, and this is more of a music video shot. I really liked this shot, it was badass, and it just shows us the type of relationship they had. These two were kids together. They've known each other their whole lives, and it's kind of tragic what happens to their relationship as time goes on due to circumstances out of their control. You know what I'm saying? Alright, let's move on. So the next time we see Ekko and Jinx together is when Jinx, Vi, Milo, and Cleggo, they're all trying to escape. I should stop calling her Jinx. Powder, Vi, Cleggo, and Milo are all trying to escape from a bunch of enforcers. So they're running. They're sprinting, and they get caught in a dead end. And then Ekko, of course, from above, the boy savior hands them a ladder. And they all climb, with Powder being the last one up. This is kind of paralleled by a scene we see later with both of them again, where they both above the enforcers' heads again. So this is a theme we keep seeing with them kind of being above the enforcers' heads, or just saying F you to authority, you know what I'm saying? So this is when the enforcers come into the last drop in search of the 4 kids who were responsible for, well, the huge explosion of the Kierman building up in Piltover. So they almost catch Jinx, but luckily they don't. And this is just Vi and Ekko there in the background. You can see just behind me, you can see Ekko's kind of like worried about, oh no, Jinx is gonna get caught, and Vi is also worried about Powder there. The next time these two characters interact in the series is when Jinx pops up and she decides she's on smoke. This is that scene on the airship where the firelights fight against Jinx. Of course, we don't know who the firelight leader is at that time, but it is Ekko. I just like how this shot is somewhat referenced again later on in the series in episode 7 of season 2, which was the Jinx and Ekko episode, which is the main reason why we made this video anyway. This is what the video is about. And yeah, they basically duplicate this shot across, and I thought that was really cool. So we have Powder and Ekko make eye contact. We got the two just meeting eyes here on the ship, on the airship, and yeah, this kind of causes them to freak out in a battle. We don't know this is Ekko at the time, but this is the first interaction of the two. Definitely not the kind of interaction they were having as kids. This is war. And this is just about how serious it gets. This is as serious as it gets, rather. Bro, at this point, you kind of just see Jinx murk, completely take out, eradicate like 3 or 4 of Ekko's people, like people that Ekko loves, people who are Ekko's friends, and she does it cold-heartedly. This is straight up war. So this is about as down in the Ekko and Jinx relationship as it gets, and it really makes you think about what Silco has done to Jinx's core as a character. She's made him a cold, hard killer, and it's crazy that those two go through it. So speaking about Silco, of course Jinx messes up the mission because she sees a firelight who kind of looks like Vi. So before she gets to shooting that firelight and murking them, she thinks, yo, is that not my sister? Did I just fight Vi? But it turns out that is not Vi, and it is just a random firelight who she ends up killing anyway. And then it leads to Silco telling her, yo, take some time off because your little episode on the airship kind of cost us a lot. You know, we are now struggling. We're now pulling hard because of your stunt. So she's kind of now talking about this. He thinks I'm weak. I've got to prove something to Silco. And then she ends up stealing the Hextech gemstone on Progress Day. So she's got a lot to prove, and I don't blame her. It's kind of in Jinx's character to always want to please people. That's part of what makes Jinx Jinx. It's that thing of wanting to please Vi, wanting to please Silco, wanting to be there for Isha, and then Powder wanting to be there for Ekko. I cover this in a video I'm going to drop later on anyway. But let's just move through it. Alright, so their next encounter, the Ekko and Jinx encounter, the next time these two lovebirds. Is this a situationship? Is that what it's called? Yeah, so the next time the situationship links up is on the rooftop where Powder kind of lights the torch calling out to Vi. And she's like, Vi, please find me. And Vi does find her. But Ekko is stalking them the whole time. He's on smoke. He's not wasting any time. He does not want to talk. He does not want to waste any time. So immediately when he sees Jinx, Vi, and an enforcer. Who is this enforcer? It happens to be Caitlyn. But to Ekko, it's like, who's this enforcer that these two are with? So he decides he's not going to allow this to happen. And he pulls up with 8 of the firelights, and they just start flying around, causing trouble for Jinx. She tries to fight them off, but she cannot do it. They just evade her attacks on their boards. And they manage to kidnap Vi and Caitlyn. They take Vi and Caitlyn away, which leaves Jinx rather sad. So there's Vi on Scar's shoulders, and Jinx was kind of just dealing with the firelight. She was distracted. This is the firelight who like cuts her leg. Yo, what's crazy is the continuity of that cut on her leg. It just stays there forever. I think they even sew the pants, and her pants are sewn in that cut for the entire series. So that was pretty cool to see that they remembered that. But yeah, Ekko and his boys get away. They manage to kidnap Vi and Caitlyn. And we have a shot here where the two are linked again through this grenade. Now someone was telling me that they're not really linked through chompers here, but you can see the firelight emblem on Jinx's grenade, so they are linked. Of course, what this shot is when Silco was trying to frame... Who was he trying to frame again? Yeah, he was trying to frame the firelights. He was trying to put it on them for all of the trouble that Jinx was causing. Hopefully to take the enforcers away from his business and point them towards the firelights. Of course, I feel like Silco never does discover the highlight. He doesn't ever discover the hideouts for the firelights. So that happens. The next time we see the firelights and a kind of parallel between Jinx and Ekko is this shot of Ekko sitting down as the leader of the firelights in his chair. We see Jinx do the same pose when she decides that I am now Jinx, and she tells this to Vi, and she sits in that chair. I don't have a shot of that, but she does it again, and this one is more about Ekko and Jinx right here. Alright, so I don't know who hit this pose better. Did Jinx hit it better, or did Ekko hit this pose better? Y'all gotta tell me right now in the chat. Is there still no chat, or is my chat just bugging and I cannot see it? Is there still no one chatting? Guys, please, if there's any takes, just say hi. Away, we got one. Yeah, Jinx hit the pose much better, in your opinion. For me, I'm an Ekko boy, so I'm gonna rip that side. Alright, so we have Jinx seeing the Hextech gemstone in Ekko's somewhat containment device that he's using to kind of like hide it so they can smuggle it up to Piltover. And then this drive kind of looks like Ekko's Z drive. So we do get Ekko's Z drive before we actually see the actual creation of the Z drive. What I find cool is that Jinx is going to see this again, but the next time she sees this containment unit, it's going to have those monkeys, which are her signature. You all think Jinx? Come on, guys. Was it really Jinx? I'ma go back. Was it really Jinx? I mean, Ekko's got the pole, man. You know what I'm saying? He's sitting there with the pole, with the baton. Am I wrong about this? Am I really wrong about this, guys? Alright, it's Jinx. Alright, cool. So yeah, she sees the device, and then she unleashes a bunch of firelights on Marcus's enforcers who were holding up Ekko and Caitlyn on the bridge. Vi is running, and all of these firelights are behind Vi at this time. So this is Jinx again being very intelligent, because what she's doing here is she's framing Ekko for her actions. She decided that she's gonna pin all of this on the boy savior and his crew. So we can see that on close inspection, the firelights are actually butterflies. And what I found really cool about these butterflies is that we see this butterfly again when Ekko transports through time in that last episode with Powder. Not the last episode, episode 7 season 2, with Powder. When Ekko is returning to his reality, as he poofs away, he turns into a butterfly. I don't know why that shot isn't here, because I put it in the slideshow. Maybe it's at episode 7, so we'll get back to it. So Ekko then breaks through Caitlyn and Vi. He saves them, and he goes into a fight with Jinx. Again, this relationship is not savable at this point. These two are trying to straight up remove each other. They're trying to get first blood on Summoner's Rift against each other. And it's kind of crazy how you can go from really loving someone to this kind of relationship that we're seeing on screen. I just think that this shot is crazy, bro. Like, she was really trying to get rid of Ekko. This was not this was not them pretending, you know what I'm saying? So he manages to get the Hextech gemstone off of her, because she did manage to recover it. Of course, she was smart enough to pull a sleight of hand and get it into her hand. And then she gets pretty annoyed by his attempt to stop her, and she calls him the boy savior. So he's kind of ascended from his other nickname, which is Little Man, which does sound a little bit like demeaning, especially if you grow up like people still calling you Little Man. Like Clago still calls him Little Man in season 2 episode 7. I guess Clago can do it because he's of age, But it's a bit condescending, I won't lie. It makes you feel like a small little dude, bro. So they call him Little Man, the boy savior. And this is where we start getting the looks between Ekko and Jinx. They start eyeing each other, bro. Look at that. Oh my. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Hey, man. You know what I'm saying? He's really just giving her the mean mug. And they show Jinx in the background. And they manage to flash back to the past. She recognizes the game that they played in the past when Ekko takes out his watch and he starts swinging it around. It's interesting because maybe he's kept that watch around because of Jinx. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, she starts also... This was crazy because throughout this fight, right? I've said it before. I've said this multiple times. Throughout this fight, there is combat and there is violent intent going on. But their facial expressions and the signals they are sending each other, it's just something else. I like this a lot because it's kind of playing... It's really playing with that concept of star-crossed lovers where like people are stuck in a relationship which is hostile. You're on different sides of the feud and then you have to kind of sneak around to fulfill the relationship. Instead of them having this sneaky link, what we have here is just them somewhat actually trying to defeat each other. It's sad, yo. Alright, and we flash back to the past. This gesture that Jinx, or Powder in this instance, gives to Ekko is the same gesture that her mother shows her. So it really is a gesture of endearment. So they flash back to the past. I really like this scene because it really shows their past and then it shows Ekko's ability to go back through time and be the force that he is, you know, using the Z drive. Of course, the firelight motif is kept solid here. The firelights are behind him. And the raven is kept for Jinx. Interesting about Jinx's ravens versus the ones we see later on in the series is that Jinx's ravens have yellow eyes. And Swain's ravens, some people are telling me it's Rom, Swain or Rom, whichever one it is. His ravens have red eyes. So that's a really cool detail by the creators. Alright, and then Jinx ends up, boom, shooting Ekko with the blicky. So the last time they had this encounter, Ekko lost and he throws his watch down. He's fuming. This time he gets his get back. He wins this exchange. He knocks Jinx and he gives her 1-2. This scene was so violent and it was just like, bro, you know what I felt like telling Ekko? I was like, bro, you can't hit a girl. I felt like telling him what our moms taught us, man. Can't hit a girl. What are you doing? Hey, but he gives her the beats, bro. He rocks her shit. I'm not gonna lie. Hey. Then, as he's about to deliver the final blow, we see him just remember who he is actually dealing with. And this look has so much pain in it. This is really the look of the series. This is how, you know, it's not just a sad look, bro. It's also just love and pain and a whole lot of different emotions. I really struggled to describe what this was when I saw it. Does anyone have a word for this? Like in the comments, does anyone have a word for what this expression or this emotion was? I think they got it spot on, and to get this kind of thing in animation is crazy. I haven't seen this in animation, and what was also crazy is that I heard that For Teach doesn't really use actors to reference their shots from, so they don't get like a actual actor to reference and then use the facial expression. Yo, I'm wilding out. But yeah, they don't use the facial expressions. Nah, bro, they actually just animated this off riff. So I wonder who they got as a reference for this, but this was insane. And Jinx also gives back this look of like, wow, I see that you've seen me. I understand that there's something here. You still care about me. There's some friction. There's some time bomb here. And then she decides that the best way to go out would be with Ekko in this moment. Double sewer. I'm not going to finish that word. Boy, you know the thing about YouTube and their regulations? My live stream has been listened to. Sewer something. Kamikaze. That word. So yeah, just she decides that the best thing she can do is go out with Ekko, but like literally go out, not like on a date, but like yo. All right, and the next time we see them together and an interaction between the two characters is episode 7 in season 2. So it was first episode 7 in season 1. That was an Ekko episode, and the next time we get an Ekko episode is episode 7 in season 2. I think right now is the best time to go into Schnee's video because he covers, I think, this episode. So we're going to be looking at what he has to say. I have not watched this video before, so I'm going into it blind, as are you. So let me just get to it and make sure it's visible to you guys as well. Alright. Just gotta make sure you guys can see it. Yeah, so what was really cool about the whole Netflix series is that they managed to change the vinyl of this episode, and they kind of gave it the Vi and Jinx treatment became the Ekko and Powder treatment for this episode. And the episode name ends up being called what does she say? Like it's the first time? What it was is them being really clever in how they kind of word it, because like it's the first time also operates like it's the first episode of a new series. This is what we could have done with Arcane if we wanted to. And this just showed mastery over the craft. It made me realize how intentional they've been with what they were doing in Arcane up until this point. They kind of just have always had a really good gauge on what they were doing with the series. Okay, I finally got this thing to pop up. Let's just make sure you guys can actually hear the audio as well, so it's not going to sound dead. Alright, let's see what he has to say. I love episode 7 of season 2. It's my favorite episode of the new season. I was just entranced the entire run. Just a thing, right? The first shot that he actually starts this video with was my favorite shots of this entire episode, where Jinx and Ekko kind of complete the circle together. I found it like really beautiful. I love episode 7 of season 2. It's my favorite episode of the new season. I was just entranced the entire run. By the way, please show love to the original video. It's called How Ekko Defines Time by a content creator called Schnee. If you're one of my audience, you might have already seen his videos, but just in case you haven't, please go and support the boy. So much of it has to do with the tone. This episode has such a deliciously nuanced tone. They're setting a mood that is so delicate. It's providing such a specific emotional background to the events of this part of Ekko's story. And everything about it does feel so right, but also just really, really hard to define. It's just really been stumping me. What Ekko is seeing is happy. Like, objectively, it's something we should love to see. He should love to see, and he does love it. But it's also unbearably sad somehow. So, yeah, so they managed to create this juxtaposition, bro, where you're kind of watching Ekko go through this really paradise, euphoric experience, but at the same time he just can't enjoy it because he knows it's fake. It's not his reality to live in. And at the same time, he's just stuck in such a not a bad place. He's not stuck in a bad place, but rather so many negative things have happened to Ekko in his past that it somewhat colors the events that are happening now as just being really, really sad. There's like melancholy. Don't beat me with this word now, dog. Yo, South African English. Yo, okay, let's continue.
What exactly is happening in my heart? That's my question. Please, viewer, define Schnee heart. So the word cathartic kept coming up with the group I was first watching this with when we were trying to describe this mood. And it was weird because cathartic, like as in satisfying, felt like it was kind of capturing maybe about half of the mood. Again, satisfying in that we wanted to see this. Ekko has always wanted to see all of this. And when we do see it, it is like a relaxing sensation that kind of washes over us. Like we can finally stop chasing this reality we've so desperately been wishing for. But along with that is like an empty feeling, a hollowness, that this isn't our world.
Yeah, true. I do like how they somewhat added a lot of exposure, brightness, and blur to some of the scenes. It really makes it feel like a dream. And that's what I was saying as well. This isn't our world that we are stuck in. We want the boy to be in this world, but we know it's not. And we know eventually he's going to have to go back to the other reality. And that's painful.
That this isn't real. So it's like extremely satisfying in one sense, but then like empty and fundamentally unsatisfying in a totally different sense, in a way that both coexist. Somehow, again, confusing. How? Explain? Another word that felt really accurate here was nostalgic. And yes, there's obviously a lot to be nostalgic about through Ekko's eyes. All these people from his childhood are here. We're seeing them again. But then that's the weird thing. This isn't his childhood. This never happened. And these are essentially different people. They're strangers in some ways. And all these parts where he's just kind of realizing how amazing everything is, seeing the Undercity thriving, seeing all these people so happy, it has that same warmth as nostalgia, but it's not his childhood at all either. In his
Yep. This Milo is not the Milo he knew. That powder is not Jinx. It's ridiculous that they managed to like flip that dynamic on us, because had they done it a different way, we really might have felt like, oh, he's in the right place. They really could have made it feel a lot better. It could have felt a lot more easygoing. I mean, when you watch the episode, right, the emotions flowing through you, it's like happiness, it's like joy. You feel good for Ekko, but at the same time there's this underlayer of just like shit, man, and it's just
his childhood, the Undercity was a rough place. People were
just
not
stop
happy.
torturing me, Arcane writers.
Peaceful, it was violent. In his childhood, it has that same warmth as nostalgia, but it's not his childhood at all either. In his childhood, the Undercity was a rough place. People were not happy. It was not peaceful. It was violent. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. This could not be further from his childhood. But nostalgia as a label for this feeling still doesn't feel that far off somehow. So once again, how does that work exactly? How can you have nostalgia for a past that did not happen? That is the opposite of what happened. So really my overall question on the tone is, how are all these emotions working so paradoxically but also so fittingly? And maybe the better question is, what function is this tone serving that could only be served by tones so paradoxical? Or maybe it's like this: if it feels so fitting.
What they did was they set us up. I don't know how long they had this episode like in their pockets in terms of the game plan of Arcane, especially when they were dropping season 1. I don't think they would have had the forethought to see this happening. But at a certain point in the planning for season 2, it was kind of just like, well, we've set everyone up like this. Everyone's used to this dark, moody palette of Arcane. We know what we're doing here. So then they somewhat just flip everything on us. They give us brighter colors, make everything more vibrant, more vivid, more easy to see. And then all of a sudden this Ekko and Jinx dynamic also gets flipped on its head, and we're just like, bro, what the hell is happening here? At the same time, again, you just know that this is not where he's supposed to be.
In the story. So what paradoxical thing in the story is this paradoxical tone matching so exactly? And really, yeah, unsurprisingly, the real thing I want to understand is this entire confusing, incredible, wonderful enigma of an episode. And the entire confusing, incredible enigma of Ekko's arc as well. I love all of it so much. And really the whole thing has that quality I love about well-written stories, truly deep stories, where it feels so right and yet there is so much that I just don't understand. I'm both satisfied and full of questions. When I feel that way, that's how I know to dig deeper. And I gotta gotta steady myself here, because for this video, as much as I want to talk about like the medallion and the bunny ears gesture and so many other things, I'm going to limit the 1,000 questions I have on the events of this episode down to just 3 or 4-ish. Fourth one doesn't really count, but kind of does. But just so that this investigative journey stays coherent to some degree. Okay, so most importantly, as far as Ekko's arc is concerned, we have this moment. Powder and Ekko at the party, dancing together and having their first kiss. That feels so important. I don't know why. Like, yes, it is wonderfully romantic. It's a beautiful scene. But if you told me to list out potential big character development moments for Ekko, going to a party and having a fun night with an alternate universe Powder that we'll never see again would not even be close to being on that list.
Exactly.
And yet this, to me, does feel important on a character level. It feels like Ekko does need this. And Heimerdinger even does tell Ekko pretty explicitly, you need this.
You can start by attending your party. What's the point of a device like this if you don't enjoy the time you have?
So what does this scene do for his character?
Heimerdinger is such a cool wingman, bro. Heimerdinger is just there for all of the characters. I don't think I've spoken in depth about Heimerdinger, so I'll give him a good 30 seconds right now. Heimerdinger is singed, but everything that singed does, Heimerdinger does in somewhat an opposing manner. Both are very convicted about what they know and they believe, and they kind of serve as a lesson to the younger generation of Arcane. Because you see the younger generation somewhat be flimsy, especially when you look at characters like Jace and Victor. They can't stand on shit. They are this side, then this side, then they're doing this, then they're trying to stay alive, then all of a sudden one is a mage, one is in an alternate reality trying to find himself because he messed up pretty much all of Piltover with bad decisions. He's supposed to be the hero but can't play the hero. So with Victor and Jace and people like even Mel is trying to impress her mother, you know. That generation still has a lot of like insecurity about what they're doing. We can see this in Ekko and Jinx as well. They haven't figured themselves out. Singed and Heimerdinger know themselves. They are old. They have age on their side. It's what Singed actually tells Caitlyn. Bro, I got a lot of age and I got a lot of patience. I have that in abundance. And that's their power. Where Singed kind of uses this power for evil, in a sense. You know, he uses it for himself. And he uses it to achieve his goal. Heimerdinger somewhat uses this intelligence to try and safeguard the planet, try and safeguard inventions like Hextech, and just try and live a happy existence. Heimerdinger has somewhat accepted a lot of things about reality, a lot of sad things. And you can kind of just see him brush those things away with that brush of acceptance, not over optimism. It's not really an optimism you get from Heimerdinger. It's a positive, realistic view. And Singed is more stoic. It's just pure stoicism. So yeah, that's my 30 seconds on those two.
Personal level.
But yeah, Heimerdinger is the boy. Like, he tells Ekko, bro, I get that you in a rush, but just slow things down. You're the time guy, right? So because you got a lot of time,
It feels like Ekko has been waiting for something like this to happen, so that what? And now he's experienced it, so he can do what? We look at his success with Jinx later on in episode 9, and we're so happy that he danced with her so that he could convince her to crash Noxus versus Piltover battle in her tricked out bunny blimp. That all happened because of the dance and the kiss with a totally different character from a totally different universe that doesn't matter to our story at all. How does point A lead to point Z here? And just to bolster the question, yes, the dancing itself was important. And we know that because when Ekko is convincing Jinx, he says, wrong thing, wrong thing, wrong thing, and then he says,
always a dance with you.
And only after he characterizes it as that specifically does he say the right thing that convinces her. So the dance scene does seem pretty important. Ekko sees it as important. The writing frames it that way. Heimerdinger frames it that way. It is clearly accomplishing something big for this character. So what is it? What is it accomplishing for Ekko? And then equally big question in a similar vein here. The thing that Ekko succeeds at in episode 9, convincing Jinx to not give up and to join the war. Vi tries to convince Jinx of the same thing right before the scene, and she fails. But weirdly, like very weirdly, Vi says basically the same thing Ekko says in that scene. Here they are side by side. I know there are differences, but I don't see how.
Wow, okay. You know, I learned from someone very special that no matter what happened in the past, it is never too late to build something new. Someone worth building it for. If you come help, use all of that explosive potential of yours for good. Maybe we could rewrite your story, just like you rewrote Zorn's. The difference here is the person asking and the intent. When Vi asks, rewriting Jinx's story is more about rewriting it in the eyes of Piltover and Caitlyn and the people that Vi, I guess, doesn't want to impress. She's never tried to impress anyone. But in terms of just smoothing things out with Caitlyn, she believes that there's a world where Caitlyn and her sister can coexist and have a happy relationship with her in between. That's kind of what Vi is trying to create. Ekko, on the other hand, tells her to do it for Zorn or for herself. So that slight difference between the two asking the exact same thing changes a lot.
How those differences are so relevant that we get opposite outcomes. So what is Vi missing in her scene, and what is Ekko getting right in his scene?
Oh, he's actually going to go into
one that really bugs me on a broader level. Ekko is the present-focused character. He is focused on what is, grieving what is, accepting what is, helping what is. His plans are based on what's happening right now. We saw that characterization very clearly all throughout Season 1, and we see what happens when Ekko gets knocked out of that in Season 1, Episode 7, when he gets too stuck in what isn't, too fixated on the powder that he lost. That's what causes him to fail. So now, Season 2, Episode 7, we take our present-focused character and again take him out of that present and put him in an alternate universe that is just not the present at all, and we make him get stuck on what isn't once again, and specifically the powder that isn't once again, but this time it causes him to succeed? How does that work? So it's a two-part question. Number one, why are we putting our present-focused character in the opposite of the present? And part two, he's supposed to fail when that happens. Why does he succeed here? Okay, and then question number...
I didn't watch his previous video. I'm not sure I agree with the take that Ekko is primarily focused on the present. I think his overarching motif that we all know from the game and everything is time itself, which would include the future and the past. I believe he's focused on a vision for Zorn as well. Not necessarily in the same way as Victor and Jace, but he has his vision, and then he has this past, and then he has the alternate timeline as well. I believe his whole thing is time. I wouldn't just say he's a present focused character. But again, I didn't watch Schnee's other breakdowns, so I can't just dismiss what he's saying as untrue.
Number 4-ish. The overall biggest, most enormous question for my own sanity: why do I love it so much if it's not the reality the story is happening in, and this powder basically isn't real as far as the story is concerned? I don't like what-if stories. I don't like dream sequences.
You like it because Arcane messed you up. They set you up. They put you in a dark reality, and they gave you a lot of what-ifs in their storytelling. They made everything so close. They just gave you such small little crumbs of, oh, if this had just gone this way, then this wouldn't have messed up, that when they finally do reward you with the what-if scenario and they let it play out and they're like, hey, this can happen, you just get sucked into it, and then they take that away as well. It's just evil, bro.
I don't like when stories do this kind of departure into an alternate whatever that doesn't really matter, just for some plot thing and some fan service. How am I so invested? This episode is so moving for me. It feels so integral to the whole story, and yet it is factually disconnected from the rest of the story. How does that work? Again, what is in my heart? Please define my heart. Okay, so starting point, here's something that I noticed is one of those situations where the story is drawing your attention towards something very specific and going, hey, look at this important thing. Use this to understand what's going on. It's this.
Dad has been raving about your Z drive. Can't remember the last time I saw her so alive.
I must say that since I've met you, lad, I've truly lived.
So alive.
Truly lived.
With powder, with this AU powder, 42 powder, I was
That's a good catch. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I did not catch that. That's
trying
a
to
good
understand
catch.
this character based on what they gave us. And I was kind of getting stuck focusing on Vander's whole fill up your cup thing. But then noticing those alive lines felt like it was opening some doors. Follow me for a second on this. Whatever it means that she is alive, this is something that Ekko asked of her. It wasn't something that she would have done on her own. It took convincing. Which means she was going to let herself continue like this, to continue as not alive. And Ekko convinced her to be alive. And that sounds oddly similar, if you're with me, to the episode 9 scene, where Ekko...
Oh my gosh, yo, Schnee figured it out. He cracked the code. They were telling us all along. What? Alive, but Jinx doesn't want to be alive. Wow.
confronts
That's a
Jinx,
big one.
who also left her own devices, is deciding to not be alive, and Ekko convinces her to be alive. In other words, Ekko isn't just taking some abstract lesson from his episode 7 story, he's not just having character development and then being able to succeed, he is facing the same situation in a different form in episode 7, and he is learning how to navigate that situation successfully. He does succeed in convincing 42 Powder to be alive, and then in episode 9 he's encountering a more dire version of that same situation, and presumably he is navigating it in the same way and succeeding in the same way. Okay, cool, now we're getting somewhere. So how does he navigate this in episode 7? It really comes down to this scene at the tree, and the components of this scene are pretty unusual. First thing is we have Ekko showing Powder the Vi mural. He talks to her very delicately about Jinx without going...
Okay. Let's see what everyone is saying. I think I've done something like really bad, and I've just kind of left you all to your own devices. So let's see chat. Can I see it from... Oh. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is just for now, and then let's see what you guys are saying. How do you guys feel about Flashback? Hey man, Schnee, yeah, he's fire. He's about the present. If you think about every episode in season 1, it starts with a flashback, except when Ekko is introduced. Schnee made another video about it. Yeah. No, I hear that. It's just that his entire motif, everything about this character somewhat ends up being just about his experience with time. He's the time guy. But I hear that. Like I said, I'd have to rewatch the series and really formulate a new opinion on how I feel about the character. But in terms of his actions, he is very present focused. Like, in terms of the stuff he'll tell Jace, for example, he will tell Jace, bro, like, you guys are currently doing things in your building for the future. You are currently doing things that could have huge negative repercussions for the Undercity. And why are you doing it? You know, so he will question that stuff. Yo, does anyone else have anything else to say about the relationship with Ekko and Jinx, bro? I actually came here to chat with you guys. I know it's kind of like I'm stopping the show, but at the same time, I want to hear from you guys. That's the whole point of doing live. Otherwise, I'll just keep dropping videos. You know what I'm saying? It's about the interaction. So, is there anyone? You love it. But like, why? What's so good about it? I think thematically for me, right? The two characters just fit each other thematically so well. Not only because they're from Zon, but because their characters have an edge to them that maybe some of the other characters in the cast don't have. And if you look at their outfit choices, it also just coincides so well. Like, they really hit. Okay, alright. It looks like... Yeah. No, I agree, Jeremy. I agree. There's too much to say. Bro. Nah, there is a lot to say. Send me a summation. But you know what? It's fine. Let's keep the program going. Let's keep the show buzzing. Because that's what we're here to do. Alright, so we were halfway through Schnee's video. Is it still playing? Yo, what the hell? The Schnee's video is still playing. Am I tripping out? No, it's not. Okay. Yes. YouTube scared me. There's like a live feed that's showing me what's happening on my stream, and it kind of freaked me out. Okay, let's continue with the source.
Going into any detail, Ashley tells Powder that he doesn't want her to change, but they have a conversation about how she's not actualizing her potential. She tells him she doesn't want to because she's afraid of losing what makes her safe.
Let's go back
we're getting somewhere. So how does he navigate this in episode 7? It really comes down to this scene at the tree, and the components of this scene are pretty unusual. First thing is we have Ekko showing Powder the Vi mural. He talks to her very delicately about Jinx without going into any detail. Ashley tells Powder that he doesn't want her to change, but they have a conversation about how she's not actualizing her potential. She tells him she doesn't want to because she's afraid of losing what makes her her. And then Ekko says this line.
Sometimes taking a leap forward means leaving a few things behind.
And that line is strange and worthy of investigation in its own right. Big question there, just what it means, but also strange because this person he's saying it to doesn't get it.
You're a real mystery, aren't you, mister?
Powder
Yeah.
hears this and just doesn't take whatever lesson from it that Ekko is trying to impart upon her. But then it seems like Ekko also hasn't fully internalized it, and later on we see Powder's the one who needs to help teach him the same lesson.
Sometimes taking a leap forward means leaving a few things behind.
So what is going on there? We don't need to look too far. When Powder says this, what is it in response to? It's Ekko saying this.
You ever wish you could just stay in one moment?
So that
Yeah.
tells us a lot. Staying in the moment, i.e. being unwilling to leap forward, being unwilling to leave things behind. Staying in the moment equals death. Now, that to me is a wild sounding notion. I would think living in the moment would be living, not dying. What could be more living than being in the moment? But even there, I'm not being precise. Ekko doesn't want to live in the moment. He wants to stay in the moment. He's saying he wants this moment to last forever. In other words, he wants to take a point in time and prevent it from changing, prevent it from moving. So not moving equals dying. That's what we're seeing here. I think that answers Heimerdinger too, with his line
I
about
get it
being
now.
truly alive. The question with Heimerdinger is that he is living in the moment with this new lifestyle. This whole Bob Dylan yodel phase that he's going through, he is embracing art, he is helping people now, he's doing all the things that Ekko taught him. But still, if you think about it, if you examine it honestly, it is still a very static existence. He is keeping people happy, but he's not really accomplishing anything. And that's because his teacher, Ekko, 1610 Ekko, was also pretty much living a static existence, where if we're being honest, he also wasn't accomplishing that much. You go back to season 1, the firelights were helping people live and breathe, but there was no actual motion. No.
Okay, big disagreement. Guys, if I disagree, I still love Schnee, bro. I still love him. He still makes good content. But at the end of the day, what we have, I understand what he means. No motion, as in not a lot that maybe drives the story forward, or not a lot that really influences Zon. And we do see Ekko have to have this episode because he somewhat realizes, oh, well, I can actually change things. I can make Zon better, and I don't have to wait for something miraculous to happen. I can move things forward. But to say there was no motion, I cannot take that take sitting down. Here's the thing, right? The Firelights is a very active organization in Zone. They are a key component because there are hundreds of people being sucked in by the Firelights, given accommodation. In season 2, it actually gets worse because they run out of space. They're starting to really have some problems. The tree is dying and they're running out of space because there's so much crime because of the Chem Barons going at it. Margot, Kroos, and what's the other guy's name? Smeech. Margot, Kroos, and Smeech end up just causing a huge shit show for everyone in the Undercity. So the Firelights have to somewhat clean that up. They're also a core component when Savika calls like the huge meeting in the town square and she summons everyone. They're also a part of that. I struggle to see Ekko as a character who hasn't been pushing things forward with his actions. However, his actions somewhat always seem on the sideline of the main narrative. I think that's a closer interpretation of what's going on. So it's kind of like when Ekko tells Jace, or when Ekko tells Vi rather about Jace's apartment there in the Kiraman Manor, and they end up robbing it. Ekko was part of that. He drove that narrative point to happen. But again, he's kind of like on the sideline. You don't see him actually doing anything. I think a good example of this is when he stops Silco's shipment of Shimmer that they're trying to get out. And this sets Silco back months. This is the first thing that causes the problem. And it triggers Jinx having to go and steal the Hextech gemstone. Otherwise, they won't have motion. You cough. He's talking about motion. Ekko causes Jinx to do something to give motion. So to say, yeah, man, I just disagree. Let me move on.
To season 1, the Firelights
was the
were
wrong
helping
thing.
people live and breathe, but there was no actual motion,
There
no
was
actual
motion.
change. And it's because
There
there was no plan, no vision for anything to happen beyond survival, and
Ah, okay.
Living?
I understand. I should have just listened to his points.
But
Alright,
then what?
clean.
Topple Soko, make life better for Zonites, fight Piltover? No, we see nothing even close to that from the Firelights. Nothing to improve lives on the scientific front, nothing even from a community front, really. They were just being able to provide a refuge where people could breathe freely, and that's pretty much it. There was no actualization of any grand potential because the Firelight community was not focused.
There was, because even to build this community shows Ekko's potential, and it shows the potential for Zon. But I understand what he's saying. Like, episode 7 kind of shits on this, and it shows like, yeah, that little firelight thing that you got going on there, where you think it's kind of like good and you're kind of doing something, yeah, just toss that away. Episode 7 just shows us a much better version of what Ekko is trying to do here with the firelights, and it ends up making this feel insignificant. But it doesn't mean that he wasn't doing anything. I can't take that point and just sit down, yo.
Focused on potential. They were just
Anyway.
focused on the now as a static state. And I realize that that's a debatable judgment to have on the Firelights, but I do think that's where Ekko himself is at
Very
in this
debatable.
episode. That's what he's grappling with. And it's interesting that what had a central place in all this in Ekko's community was the mural. It's what helped everyone there process and memorialize the past through acceptance, recognizing that the past is set in stone, it cannot change. But it's almost like that focus, despite it being healthy, despite it being true, has leaked into how Ekko views the present.
Powder's gone, Vi. All that's left is Jinx, and she belongs to
You're
Silco.
wrong. She's still in there. I can reach her.
You can't. I'm sorry, but that's who she is now.
Accepting the past has acted as a model to help Ekko accept the present, but fixating on the unchanging nature of the past has made him treat the present as unchanging as well, which it's not. And we see this Powder, 42 Powder, stuck in the same mindset. She does have this very healthy view of the past. She even has almost the exact same shrine as Ekko has. And what this new Ekko chooses to teach her, to show her, is change, non-staticness, possibility, potential. He takes Powder's set in stone idea of Vi and he brings it to life again. He shows change in what seemed fundamentally unchanging, movement in what seemed fundamentally frozen. He shows that something static, something literally dead, can come alive again. How? By seeing the potential within it. And the reason
I like that. That's the type of take I like. That is beautiful. Yeah, Schnee's on the money with that. Yep.
he was able to find that
That's
as a gift
powerful.
for this different pattern and give that to her, is that that's what she gave him. That's what this whole world gave him. Change in what seemed fundamentally unchanging, the past.
Yo, Schnee cooked, right? Yo, okay, I'm gonna stop stopping it, but
And
damn,
since the past
you
was
cooked
a
it.
model for his relationship to the present, once he sees the past become dynamic and alive with possibility, the present also now becomes dynamic and alive with possibility. And that's what he shows Jinx in episode 9. The scene, of course, follows the same pattern as what we just saw, like to a T. Ekko encounters a dead Jinx. He delicately talks to her about powder without going into too much detail. He doesn't ask her to change. He shows her a glimpse of that powder, of that potential. She sees, it's unclear what she understands, but she sees this, the monkeys, that are basically screaming alternate universe you. And Ekko says in a slightly different formulation, that same line about leaving a few things behind.
No matter what happened in the past, it's never too late to build something new.
And now we can see the clear difference between this attempt and Vi's attempt. Listen to what Vi said.
If you come, help use all that explosive potential of yours for good, maybe we could rewrite your story like you did with Zahn.
It sounds very similar, but after examining what Ekko learned in the alternate universe, we can see that there's a gigantic difference between rewriting a story and building something new. Vi
Yes.
did not say write a new story. No, rewrite your story. That's past focused. It's the thing that we saw
Yeah.
Kate and Jinx both really in agreement about.
No amount of good deeds can undo our crimes.
The difference between writing something
Yep.
new and rewriting is that with rewriting, there's an implicit judgment on what was previously written. And what you're doing is replacing that. You're going back and undoing the first writing and writing it better this time. Because
Yep.
it was...
It's exactly like I said. Vi is focused on changing who Jinx is because she doesn't accept the Jinx that she has in front of her, and she feels like she can alter that Jinx and turn that Jinx into something that this Jinx is not. Whereas Ekko kind of just says like, alright, well, you are what you are right now, but let's just keep pushing. You know, there's a difference. It's kind of like when someone, it's kind of like if you've got, I know some people might have parents who are like really, but you did this, or you have friends who consistently remind you about your past. But you're this kind of person, you did this corny thing in high school or whatever, and you're like maybe 5 years off of that event. Then you have another friend who won't add the judgmental layer to who you are, right? Or to the past, rather. They won't bring in that judgmental layer of the past and apply it to who you currently are when trying to advise you on a future endeavor. So they won't say, oh, but you couldn't kick a ball when you were 2 years old, so you can't play football. They will say, well, you now want to play football, so you can take some steps forward, and you're going to need to practice. You're going to need to be practical about it. But I believe that you can do it. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, this judgment on what was previously written is a huge difference maker. It's the difference between condemning Jinx and just somewhat saying, well, let's move.
You're going back and undoing the first writing and writing it better this time because it was bad. The past was bad, and that's a problem. It's your problem. You're tasked with fixing what was broken. And when what's broken is the past, that is a tall order. But what Ekko is saying is forget the past. It's absolutely relevant. It has nothing to do with what you can do now. So why not join me and do that? We're coming up on the point where the third question is now coming into focus. Ekko is a present-focused character, and alternate universes are alternate. They are not the present. So why are we here? How does this contribute to Ekko if it's seemingly knocking him out of his present reality focus? But that's the thing. What we're seeing here is that Arcane is really pointing us towards a new idea of the present, a much more advanced definition of the present. And this is not just an Arcane idea. To go on a little bit of a tangent, but not really, it could not be more relevant. I've encountered this exact question before in the same form before. Magic the Gathering did a block called Time Spiral. It was 3 sets, time themed, and so they naturally decided to do a past theme set, a present theme set, and a future theme set. Listen to the head designer talking about it.
So I understood what the past set wanted, I understood what the future set wanted, but what do you do with the present set? That was the hard one. I'm like, well, it can't just be set in the present, because every set's set in the present, and that's when I stumbled upon the idea of an alternate reality present set.
That episode of Drive to Work came out in 2013. This is a question I've been thinking about for over 10 years. It's the same question. How is alternate reality a way of exploring present reality? Alternate is alternate. It's specifically not the present, so how does that work? But apparently this is a thing. There is something intuitive about it that I cannot deny. There's a different idea of the present that both these pieces of art are working with. So what is that idea? How is this different from my idea of the present? And what new understanding of the present is this pushing me towards? So here's the idea, I think. If I take a die and I roll it, and I get a 4. That doesn't mean the sum total of the reality of the die is 4. No, the reality of the die is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And it is always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's what a die is. And yes, time moving forward can only choose one path, but when I'm engaging the die, all 6 realities are in that moment. Meaning the concept of potential isn't just thought exercises of what could happen. Potential is a real existing quality that is incarnate in the present moment. And if you're dealing with the present moment without acknowledging the radical possibilities and paths to all different futures, then you're not really engaging the present moment. You're engaging the form of that moment, what that moment will be, what it will turn into once it's in the past. And this is something which is easy to see with like a 6-sided die, but it really is everything. Everything you engage with in reality is like its own 6-sided die or 20-sided die or million-sided die. And every moment isn't just a place within the timeline, it's like an on-ramp to any number of realities. Everything that we call now is really movement towards any number of realities. And yes, just like the die landing on 4, only one of those will end up fully actualizing. But
I think this is very interesting to bring up in terms of Arcane. What he said right now is really heavy. Basically, he's just saying that if you make a choice between drinking water and not, like I just drank water while I was on stream, that could lead you down a completely different path. It's kind of like a butterfly, different path rather. It's kind of like the butterfly effect than if you chose to do something else. Like maybe just flash my ring on screen. Yo, check that shit out. You know? So that leads me down a completely different path in time. And those options are always available in the present in any given moment of the present. Where this applies to Arcane is that what the main reality of Arcane is, and I think he's showing it now, is that it's a time loop. Victor and Jace keep getting stuck in the same cycle of things, keep repeating the same cycle of events. Now, my opinion on what happens here with the time loop is that essentially Victor's stuck in a cycle where the heroes never win. That's why we see Jace in Husk 4, because every single reality, Jace plucks that same hammer from that exact same position. He goes to the top of the Hex Gate when Victor like flies him there, and he gets touched by Victor on the head, like Victor's baptizing him with paradise, and he never wins. And that just keeps happening over and over. Somewhere down the line, after the destruction happens and Victor makes the entire Piltover just an arcane apocalyptic mess, he realizes that, oh wow, this perfect world that I made actually really sucks. Then he tries to find Jace again. He figures out time travel because he's got a lot of time to do this. He straight up got a lot of time to do this. He's a mage, and Singed gave him a lot of power with that shimmer infused blood. So his lifeline is pretty long. He can probably live for a very long time. He goes back into time and he tries to fix it. But by trying to fix it, he messes it up again. Until Ekko goes into the specific instance of alternate reality that the anomaly causes. The anomaly scatters people through time. So anything can happen when you're in the anomaly. So you've got to think about it like Ekko could have ended up in a worse reality than the one he comes from. And Jace could have ended up in a nicer reality. It just so happens that in this exact instance of Arcane, they happen to end up in the perfect scenario, which moves them into a scenario that can change Arcane. Mind you, the rune also had to be the right rune, as in the rune that Victor hands Jace also has to be the acceleration rune for all of this to work. So this is the 1 in billion instance that we are viewing in Arcane, where Victor manages to escape the time loop.
But the potential of all the possibilities is a real thing that is existing in every moment. Part of what the present is unactualized potential. It's the fact that it's in motion now and it's going somewhere. Or, hey, get this, put another way, the present is a type of time that has a charge to it. A potential, a recursive impulse. Big surprise, yes, of course this is a pervasive idea in the whole show, because this is Arcane, and the writers make everything. But what he's describing is this exact idea. Even though he's not talking about time here, having a charge, meaning an energy, meaning a potential towards movement, talking about recursive impulses, meaning repeated multiple impulses within one, and contrasting that with cold.
But cold isn't its name.
As in not moving, as in dead, is a pretty concise summing up of this idea.
Yeah, this is that scene where Jace looks at himself, looking at himself, looking at himself, looking at himself. When he's in the anomaly, it's the exact same thing. Yep.
Yeah. But anyways, this understanding of the present as something which is not static but dynamic. This is what Ekko is gradually coming to understand throughout this entire episode as he sees these new possibilities, as he's introducing Powder to the new possibilities, as he's seeing her interact with the idea of potential and movement, seeing her transform from static and stationary to alive. And all that comes to a beautifully moving and fitting climax with the dance scene. And there just could not be a better metaphor for this idea of a dynamic present than dance. The charge, the impulse to be in constant motion, to pick up on cues from your partner and that take you to new places.
I was just following your lead.
But also the peace and the warmth and the satisfaction of living in this moment, totally responsive to change from one moment to the next. It's like when people use that phrase about dancing like no one is watching. What people mean there when they're using that phrase, that is a way of talking about being in the present. And there's a reason that a non-stationary activity was chosen for that phrase. We intuitively understand that a crucial part of living in the present moment is feeling the movement of the present moment. And this is wonderfully summed up by Powder reprising Ekko's lesson right back at him.
Sometimes taking a leap forward means leaving a few things behind.
Ekko has now experienced...
Alright, let's check out what you guys are saying in the comments. We're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep hearing what you guys have to say because it's important to me. Also, just want to check if I got my bearings on. I had this very bad feeling that I was not showing you guys like the audio, like I wasn't playing the audio through the stream. So let's hear what's happening. I disagree with Schnee. Which part do you disagree with? The whole time loop thing, the present? I felt like I disagreed with a lot of what he said. So which aspects of what he's saying do you feel he's not really hitting on the money? I agree with what Schnee has to say. Yeah, I like the fact that this series can be interpreted both ways. You know, it can be interpreted from a different perspective. All right, well, I don't see much motion. You know, we're talking about living in the motion. I don't see much motion in the comments. So for the sake of the people who are watching and are super engaged with what's going on, maybe we just get back to the video, because we got a lot to finish. All right, my fear in this episode was the whole multiverse thing. I saw dimensions and I got flashbacks. Why are you like this? Nicholas, were you actually in Vietnam? Were you actually in Vietnam? Or is this a huge part of your joke? That's crazy, yo. Damn. Yeah, they don't teach us much about what actually happened in Vietnam in South Africa. So it's kind of like an American thing where you guys have the context and we just like, well, they went into Vietnam and then did they lose? They kind of lost, right? Guerrilla tactics? Alright, let's get back to the video. I think that's essential. Let's get back to what we were doing. We got a program and we might not finish it on time. Let's try and clear the program. Oh wait, ooh, me showing my analytics. Oof. Hey, that's in the stream forever now. We just gotta move with it. All right, let's go.
This idea, he's worked with it, but only here does he fully internalize it. Here he applies it to himself.
Let's go back a bit.
Means leaving a few things behind.
Ekko has now experienced this idea, he's worked with it, but only here does he fully internalize it. Here he applies it to himself consciously, in this moment where perhaps it is the hardest for him to move on. We know that he does struggle to move on, especially when it comes to Powder. But with Powder herself urging him to, he's finally able to awaken to movement again. And what follows this is everything about this whole journey. Not just a kiss, but a kiss as if it's the first time. No history, no past, purely in the moment, charged with potential, with the possibilities of all the places this could go. It is yet another intimate dance between these two present focused characters, and it's beautiful. It is a truly beautiful moment. And this is, by the way, the fascinating thing about Jinx.
Yeah, what's cool about this is that even without the analytical breakdown or the analysis that you get from us YouTubers, you somewhat feel this intuitively when you're watching the series. You sense that this is something important, and I think that's what makes a series good, is that the fact that they can take a whole episode to lollygag and pretty much time waste, because they were under time crunch to get a lot of plot points into a small amount of time. They had LeBlanc to deal with. They had Mal and Mbessa. They had the war that has to happen. They had Victor and Jace. They had so many plot points that they had to crunch into a small little space, that kind of using 40 minutes on Jinx and Ekko fanfiction doesn't really seem worth it. But then after watching the series, and you know, after going through the trauma of watching that last episode, this one sticks. There's something about episode 7 that's really like different, and that difference is not a bad difference. It's a healthy difference that helps the entire Arcane achieve a new level as a piece. They changed so much about the series in this episode that they just managed to demonstrate mastery over the craft, bro. They know how to change the tone of something. They managed to make us feel exactly how they wanted us to feel about this episode. It's a very complex emotion. Like you were saying at the beginning, it's cathartic, nostalgic, it's sad, it's depressive, it's happy, it's bliss, it feels like a fever dream. Is this really happening? Is it not? All of those things at once. And that's, I don't have words for it. It's just brilliant, man.
Powder as a character, that we see her as this individual who's another intimate dance between these two characters, and it's beautiful. It is a truly beautiful moment. And this is, by the way, the fascinating thing about Jinx Powder as a character, that we see her as this individual who is torn between these set identities, Powder, and Jinx. And today she's this one, and tomorrow she's this one, and she's stuck in the past, and then it's all about the future, and then she's full of rage, and then she's full of hope, and then full of despair. Looking at that, there is no character who's more emblematic of a dynamic present than Jinx. She is completely at the mercy of the movement of the events that surround her. She's just tossed this way and that way by the unpredictable chaos, by the random possibilities of life. And yes, she tries to nail it down.
That's why Jinx is so relatable, because Arcane happens to her, and life happens to a lot of us. In fact, life happens to everyone, and the uncontrollability of life swinging you this way and that way, and somewhat having to wear different masks of your personality depending on who you're addressing or the feeling of a moment. That is what Jinx is. So she feels alive, and that's what Schnee is getting at. She's dynamic, and that dynamicism, whatever that word is, that dynamic feeling that she gives us, it resonates with real life. It makes her feel like a real person. Characters are not meant to be real people, by the way. They are plot points that make you feel that way. And no one really does it better in Arcane than Jinx.
Anchor herself really for her own comfort in these set identities, complete with her own histories and trajectories for the future based on available data. She is often consumed by the past, but that's not how Ekko sees her. He doesn't see set identities, and he never has. He sees a complete life that is constantly in flux. Even in season 1, he is the only character who looks at Jinx and sees Powder and interacts with her as Jinx based accurately on experiences from the Powder days. She is a unified individual in his eyes, just one who changes. And really what I mean by that is someone who visibly changes, because everyone changes, but with Powder we see it. She expresses it fully. She lives each change completely. She lets herself be completely redefined by it, completely consumed by it. And yes, sometimes that change is being consumed by the past, because just like potential, the future is part of the present. History, the past, is also part of the present. And much of the change Powder is constantly undergoing is being tossed from present to future to past, and often getting stuck, but then always finding movement again. You look at her entire life, and she never lets herself remain stuck. She never runs from change. Every time she bravely walks towards it. And I think that's why Ekko and Powder are really made for each other in the context of the show. They both stand as these representative figures of the dynamic present in a show that's all about the past and the future. Going back to the scene in episode 9 of Ekko talking to Jinx, I think what we just talked about is so beautifully summed up, so eloquently expressed in Jinx's hair. And yeah, hair storytelling techniques. Who would have thought? Yet another ridiculously niche storytelling thing that Arcane is amazing at. But yeah, Jinx's hair, we have her iconic braids, which just are Jinx. When we see blue braids, we think Jinx automatically, and apparently so does she. And when we find her in a state where she's seeing that identity is fundamentally bad for this world, something that causes nothing but destruction, that's when we see her like this. She has undone her braids. And what that's expressing is a strong desire to undo Jinx. But then once Dream Circle convinces her to walk away and give up her life, then what does she do? She cuts her braids off. We go from trying to undo the past to actually physically letting go of it. And that's when Ekko confronts her, and once he convinces her to do what again? To not just let go of the past because it's meaningless, but to build something new instead, then what do we see? She gives herself a new hairstyle. She builds something new. This
hairstyle is also Vi's hairstyle, and as you can see, like, if you observe just what she's wearing, the yellow paint on her is for Isha. She uses that to do the parts of her hot air balloon that have Isha's kind of X, the one that he has on the one that she has on her helmet. So that's Isha's paint. Then of course the neon green is the firelights paint representing them. The dark purple or indigo, I'm not too sure, and of course the pink X is a nod to Jinx herself. So you have the characterization of many characters who are important to her in her design right here. I'd say the dark purple, maybe Silco, maybe his eye. Nah, that's a reach. I'd rather not have it than just reach and be
It's
wrong.
perfectly articulated in the storytelling language of hair. So cool. But just to go back and now really truly dig into the scene in detail, now that we're acquainted more fully with the principles the story is exploring, first of all, the whole phenomenon of the Z-Drive makes total sense. Or it was hard not to see it as just Ekko being allowed to fail again and again, which isn't wrong, that is what it allows him to do. But what it is on a character or a thematic level is this recursive impulse thing. It's him accessing the moment not as a static single thing, but in all of its possibilities. He's gone from a character who lives in the moment moment to a character who is now super engaged in the moment to a degree that no one else is, because really no one else deserves to have that level of access to the now. Ekko is the only character who understands and lives this concept so deeply. I mean, he is even named after the concept, and within his arc, the Z Drive and that ability is how the story rewards his new level of understanding. So he uses...
This is such a good breakdown of the character. I just have to say it. He's on the money.
That we see this example.
I just want to talk to you about Jinx.
And actually is really interesting and just kind of sad going back to the Vi scene.
Jinx?
Haley Steinfeld makes it very noticeable through her voice acting how Vi is pointedly calling her sister by the name Jinx here, like in this kind of casual way that kind of also screams, hey look, I'm doing it right, finally. But unfortunately at this point, in this moment, Vi doesn't realize that she's found her sister running from that identity, taking out her Jinx braids, picking at her iconic pink and blue fingernails. Vi is just kind of late to this in the worst way possible. Jinx doesn't want to be reminded of her Jinxy tendencies right now. She doesn't really want to be anything right now.
Is Vi a good sister? If you could choose a character to be a family member of yours in Arcane, out of all of these characters, who would you pick? Would you pick Vi? I wouldn't. I wouldn't pick a Victor. Who would I pick? It's really tough. Family member from Arcane. Let's do that game. I don't know. I think... Hear me out. Drunk Heimerdinger as my uncle. That would be insane, bruh. You know the gems he dropped casually? And he'd just be vibing there on his Bob Dylan shit. Bro, Heimerdinger Professor mode. You know, future alternate reality Heimerdinger. But just give him a beza. Just give him a drink. Man, yeah. That's definitely the family member I'd take. I think Ekko as a brother would clash with me too much. I think we are... Yeah, we... Nah, it wouldn't work. Jinx, no. Vi, never. Who else would I take? Older brother Jace? But older brother Jace is just such an annoying thing because now... Or even younger brother Jace, because he just achieves so much and he kind of just shits on you, bro. Like, you just have someone who's just achieving so much. So what do? Okay, let's move on.
Right now.
Let me know. I'll read the comments just now. Let me know who you chose. Family member from Arcane.
She wants to be nothing. And I think that's also why Ekko's slip-up gives her pause. And at first I thought there's something to the fact that he corrected himself to Jinx. Pow, Jinx, he's saying both, which is kind of a way of saying neither. It's like saying powder, Jinx, whatever, I don't care. He's engaging her as a dynamic entity, as a constantly changing identity, which is what she is, absolutely. And then of course he mentions the dance, and not in an annoyed way, in an appreciative way. Vi cannot deal with a constant give and take. She can't deal with a change. But the dance is something that Ekko embraces about his childhood friend. He is willing to dance with her, whether she's powder, or whether she's Jinx, or whether she's both, or whether she's neither. He just values his friend. And it is unclear what Jinx understands about Ekko and the Z Drive in this moment. It does seem like she's starting to put it together somewhat, or at least realize something weird is happening. Ekko's body does start to literally smoke throughout this conversation. That's kind of weird, not hard to wonder what's going on with that. But whatever she understands, we certainly do get this moment of her seeing the monkeys in the Z Drive. And they are the same monkeys, but they're pink and they're powdery, they're not hurting anybody, and they're actually part of some device that's saving Ekko. These same chaos monkeys of destruction, the Jinxiest of Jinx symbols, they can be something different. They can be part of some new invention. And then Ekko tells her that the past doesn't matter. He tells her that you can build something new, and you're the person I want to do it with. Not with powder, not with Jinx, but with you, my changing, dancing friend. I started off this video mystified and awed by this incredibly nuanced tone, and that's also something which is falling into place now with all we've discussed about this powerful idea of time. Nostalgia for a past that didn't happen. It's true that that past wasn't a path that reality took.
That's interesting. I've never heard someone point that Ekko line at Ekko himself, like someone to change it for. I've always thought he was pointing that at Jinx, as in she needs to find someone, as in herself or Zorn, or just a greater purpose than death to change it for. But it's really cool that it can also apply to Ekko himself, saying, hey, you're the person who I think is worth building it for, because I've experienced this whole other side of you, which is powder, and I now understand that maybe that side of you might be gone in this reality, but it's still you. It's still part of what you could have been. It's still in your essence. It's your core.
Idea of time. Nostalgia for a past that didn't happen. It's true that that past wasn't a path that reality took, but this timeline and all that it is, all these characters are, is still part of that past moment in time. Just like when I roll my die, I'm engaging with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All those possibilities exist in that moment, but only one moves forward. And all of life really is that way. Every moment is charged with countless possibilities, and acknowledging that potential really is just knowing those moments more intimately. So usually nostalgia is warm feelings about the past as static snapshots, but this is the warmth of reliving this particular aspect of the past possibility that we rarely even think to remember was there in the first place. Ekko says it himself.
I used to dream the Undercity could be like this, but somewhere I got consumed by all the ways it wasn't.
Part of his childhood wasn't just experiencing what did happen, it was knowing what could happen. Part of the past was dreaming. Part of the past was the movement, was the dance. And as we learn from Ekko, those possibilities aren't just fleeting nothings. It's not just thought experiments about a future that truly is set in stone. No, we don't like fortune cookies here. Those untapped possibilities were seeds that never germinated, some of which are still with us. So the phenomenon of nostalgia for a past that never happened really matches how we should always feel about the present. If we are fully and actively engaged with the present as Ekko is teaching us to be engaged with it, in all of its infinite built-in timelines, most of which never happen, then we will constantly be feeling the warmth of acceptance of all these possibilities, even knowing that all these possibilities, which are existing side by side with us, will never be presence or past that we can experience. And this is what also explains the other mysterious feeling I highlighted earlier, a catharsis that's somehow unsatisfying. Unsatisfying because we know it's so close to being real, but it isn't. That is such a powerful description of the experience of dreaming. The vision of what could be is so close that it feels real, but the fact that it's not real, you're not in that reality just yet, that creates a subtle sense of discomfort. An agitation to act, to change things, to move, it charges your experience. And that is another feeling that Arcane is urging us to experience when we are engaged in this dynamic present that Ekko is teaching us about. Seeing the possibilities is so close to reality that we're already feeling the satisfaction from them, and yet still we have that agitation to act. So what we're seeing here is that this episode is exploring an extraordinarily complex idea of time. But before we even get there structurally, before we even really apprehend what that idea is, we are immersed in a tone that gives us the exact experience of that idea emotionally. We feel what it feels like to live with this multifaceted idea of time before we understand it. And then once we do understand it, it feels right because we've already come to know it on a deeper level. That is genius level writing. It's unbelievable. Wow. Okay, we'll stop here.
Alright.
Subscribe. I gotta
Subscribe
self-criticize
to
a bit on this
Schnee.
one.
That was a really good breakdown. I've always wondered, like, you know, how many people would accept the reality that Ekko was given. You get me? If you were thrown into a reality that somewhat works out better than the reality you're currently in, would you just jump to that paradise reality knowing that people around you maybe have changed and certain events aren't the same, and fundamentally you might not even be interacting with the same people? Of course, you will have to trade some people being dead and some people being alive in this reality. So like maybe someone you love comes back, and maybe someone you love, you lose them in this reality. It's a weird thing, but I'm not sure how many people would actually take up the opportunity to stay in the reality. I'm not sure whether I'd stay or not. I guess it would depend on the dynamic of that reality alone. Alright, that was a great video by Schnee. Let's get back into the program. First, let me check out the comments. How did you guys feel about that video, yo? How was that? Schnee the goat was just going to ask if you saw this vid. Yeah, man, it was a special vid. Yo, your name's Aura. You got all the aura? Got all the aura? Yeah, man, it was tight. On a different topic, quick, do you think that we will get the Jinx and Ekko spin-off? I don't think we'll get a Jinx and Ekko spin-off, but I do think that there's enough hype around Timebomb where they're gonna keep teasing us like this. They're never gonna make it official, but they're gonna keep playing with us because they know that, like, it's kind of, how do you put it? It's smarter to just tease things sometimes and somewhat imply something or just hint at it than explicitly just say it. It's kind of like what I wish they would have done with Caitlyn and Vi. They also do this with Jace and Victor a bit. They give us that inkling that there's a little bit of homosexuality between the two. But in my opinion, what it looked like, I have bros that I'm really close with, right? I have friends who I'm really tight with, and it looked like me with one of my bros. That Victor and Jace relationship, it really looked like me when I can just chat to my bro, and I can just be vulnerable, and I can open up, and I can be like, bro, this is what's happening in my life, etc., etc. So it really felt like that. Good video. I would stay in the better reality. Yeah, facts. Facts. If it was good, if it was really giving like as much as you wanted to do, I would definitely stay. We don't know where Singed is in this universe, so the video is goated as expected from Mr. Schnee. Nah, he really broke that down really well. I really like his interpretation of the present being a dynamic, moving force. It's like a reality that keeps changing in every aspect of reality, and you can go in any direction and that will influence it. So he says that, and he says that Ekko and Jinx are a vessel to demonstrate this possibility of this moving timeline which can change in so many different ways. And Jinx is the moving timeline. She is all of the possibilities, and Ekko is the present moment, kind of interacting with that. He's a character who's stuck in the present, kind of interacting with, okay, the future can go this way, it can go that way, but whichever way it goes, I will accept it. That is sick, yo. That's some powerful stuff. Alright, let's get back to what we were cooking with our section. So, like I said, episode 7. So, if you don't remember, we had gone over some of the previous stuff. So, I said this look that Jinx and Ekko were giving each other was just filled with so much static. It was just that static electricity, and then pah, pops. So, we are going to continue, of course, episode 7 in the Jinx and Ekko stream. This is from season 2. It starts out with this time disc, this vinyl, not time disc. It's not a time disc, it's a vinyl. This vinyl in the record player, and they changed it to fit these two. And this is my favorite shot of the episode by far. This is where we have Ekko seeing Jinx in the reflection of powder. And this was just so crazy. This was powerful stuff. Then we have Jinx kind of asking Ekko, yo, are you okay? Like, you've been jumpy today. What's going on? Are you on your meds? Is everything alright? And then Ekko says he's good, but we all know that he's not really good. He's struggling with something. So Ekko, again, we can see he's just wigging out this entire episode. He keeps drawing the anomaly in his book. He's just not comfortable with where he is in this episode. We then get him interacting with Powder, and he says something out of character. He says a lot of things that are out of tune, and they make Powder feel very uncomfortable. They make her feel upset, and she kind of just asks him to leave before she says something she will regret. Basically, Ekko was trying to just figure out what is going on in this reality. Why is Vi dead? How did this happen? And in him doing this, he ends up kind of just offending someone who's part of this reality, who happens to be Powder. He then takes her down to the firelights place, or at least the secret place where the firelights encampment would be, but it doesn't exist in this universe because there was no need for it to ever exist. And he shows her this image of Vi, which I found is very, very powerful. Like Schnee said in the video, this is kind of like him showing Jinx what could be, what could have been. You know, that song that they play in Arcane a lot. What could have been in the first season at the end, you know, when Jinx is blowing things up. This is that exact feeling. This is what could have been in this reality if Vi stayed alive. And yes, he does manage to change Jinx's perspective, but Jinx also says something about Vi that's very interesting here. She says that Vi wasn't tough because she was a brave, strong, fearless character. She says that Vi was tough because Vi was scared. She's a scaredy cat, and she's scared of losing the people around her, and that's what drove her to do all of these things like robbing houses and whatnot. And I think that's a very accurate description of Vi. She's very focused on the people around her, kind of like Jace. Jace and her are very similar in their approach to life because of the way their characters are created, which is why when they worked together, it became such an interesting dynamic to see Jace and Vi kind of smash things up together. But it caused so much destruction. You can really see that Jace and Vi aren't characters who think through their actions. They somewhat just act and they achieve a lot, but in that achievement they cause destruction. I think that's a video worth making alone. Like, I need to make a video on Jace and Vi because they really do act really well together in terms of the dynamic between them. Alright, let's move on. Alright, so they talk. Of course, Ekko asks, hey, Jinx asks Ekko, oh, so you want me to change? And he's like, nah, I'm cooling. Then they end up building the Z drive together. We've got the pink monkey that she's holding in her hand. And at this point, you can somewhat see Powder really just thinking that, nah, this is not my Ekko. Something weird is happening with this Ekko. But this is also a look of endearment. She appreciates this Ekko's company. But I do think that this look has some suspicion added on to the endearment. It's kind of like a puzzled look mixed with a I really like this person, I admire this person look. I told you guys at the start of Schnee's video, I really like this shot a lot, guys. I really love this shot where they kind of complete the cycle together. And what is the cycle? It's time. So they complete the time loop together. That's really cool. Alright, so we are going to keep moving through it. We see them building the Z drive, and of course this episode felt so alive when I saw this, because just seeing them work on the Z drive, it made me feel like I used to watch this show as a kid where they'd kind of like show the process behind making a lot of products, video games, baseballs, basketballs. It was called How It's Made. I think it would play on either Discovery or National Geographic. And I always just liked the process of watching something being built or made. It's kind of like those shorts or those reels which go super viral right now on social, where they just show you how something gets built or something gets made or how food gets prepared. Watching the scene felt like that, and my little lizard brain was just like super attached to what was going on. And of course, we heard Schnee talk in depth earlier about the scene and how it's representative of the moving presence and how it's integral to the entire narrative, and it's not just put there randomly, I suppose. So we have Schnee break this down really well. If you weren't here for this, the dance is about movement. Ekko and Jinx are movement-based characters. Movement in terms of how they handle time and how their arcs both move the story forward, and sometimes their arcs stay in the present, and sometimes their arcs are primarily focused on things that happened in the past. Alright, this was really good as well, just the vibe and the feeling of the scene. Episode 7 really just makes you appreciate, this is the Ekko Jinx stream, you know? This is about these two. Episode 7 really makes you appreciate these two characters. Bro, I'm gonna hide myself for a bit. What? Just the way they're looking at each other. Contrast this with the earlier episodes when they're making eye contact, and there was always hints at the type of relationship they have. But this somewhat consummates what's happening between these two characters. Alright, and then we have this moment that we see again in episode 9. This one is a real heartbreaker, because this is, for me, a moment that we are not going to get again. And that's why they somewhat hinted at it as the Arcane writers. They somewhat told you that you better enjoy this moment. It's like the question I heard about it earlier. Do we get a Jinx Ekko spin-off? I think they put them in media next to each other a lot from now on. I think they do play with them in a lot of cinematics or media. Not a lot. In some of the media. They just group them together. Maybe when a new skin line drops, they drop an Ekko version and a Jinx version. But I think that this moment is forever just for Arcane, and it is to show us that if you want this Timebomb thing, you have to come to this moment to get it. That's why they're like, I'll remember this moment forever. That's why Ekko says that, because you as the consumer, you better remember this moment forever, because this is the last time you're going to get this. We have Ekko somewhat just realize that this is all going to end soon. Very, very depressive episode. This had me in my feels. Then we have this shot, which is really important actually. This shot, the pendant has the faces of both Ekko and Jinx in it, and she is staring at it, and she gives it the same look that she gives the hex crystals in episode 1, and I found that to be very, very interesting. Don't worry guys, we are about to get to the crux of this. There's something really interesting at the end of the stream. Something I found. I'm not sure how many people have seen this, because I did see someone else maybe made a video on it. I think the guy's name is Daniel. But oh, it's going to get you hyped up for the Ekko and Jinx future. So in the future, we're going to see these two characters. So yeah, because we just had a whole huge breakdown on Schnee talking about this episode, I'll do a video on it as well. I'm working on the video actually. That's why it was so crazy seeing Schnee drop on the same day. I was busy in edit, so that should drop either tomorrow or the next day. We'll see how the editing goes. Alright, so we have Ekko and Jinx staring at each other, and this was also that longing feeling where she kind of realizes for sure that this is not my Ekko, this is another Ekko. And yeah, this also felt really, really bad, but it also felt really, I felt good that Ekko is the type of person who would go back to his reality to save it. That's what makes him a hero, and it feels really good when you see a character do that. Alright, we have the butterfly that I mentioned earlier. Alright, so this butterfly motif keeps popping up in Arcane, and it has to do with time travel. But it happened with Jinx when she built those butterfly bombs. So it's not only about time travel, because we often see the butterfly associated with Victor and Jace. But now it's being kind of echoed in the scenes that we see with Ekko and Jinx. So it's a really nice touch that they also have that butterfly effect motif attached to them. And those 4 characters, if you really think about it, are the characters who have interacted the most with these time loops and all of this stuff happening. The only exception to those 4 being Heimerdinger. Then we have her put the pendant in her drawer next to the hex crystals that destroy everything. This scene is dark. This is dark. Make no mistakes. This is the darkest moment. This is when we actually get back into the regular Arcane. Not when Ekko is going back to his past. Not when Jace is going through his effed up reality in the apocalypse. This scene is crazy. And I'll tell you why. Ekko might have just created Jinx in this timeline. There's a lot of evidence to suggest this as well. We kind of see Jinx progressively get more Jinxy as the episode. She starts using more pink around her eyes. You can see the pink in her eyes. She starts doing the kind of stuff that Powder was doing, looking at, like, this is the same look, like I said, that Powder had in her eyes when she saw the Hextech crystals. She makes the same entrance that Jinx made. We start to see her get more jinxy, and Ekko might have jinxed this timeline as well and sent it to ruin. Don't forget, if Hextech ever gets created in this reality, Mbessa's going to be knocking on the door. She's going to be the first one in Piltover looking for that weapon. Regardless of Mel, regardless of if Mel is still in this reality or not. Mel would be in this reality, but she just wouldn't be as rich and as powerful. She wouldn't have that huge Madada mana. We can actually see. Let me show you. Let me show you, since you're all still here. The few of you who are left. Alright, so slightly to the left of Powder, almost in line with her shoulder, right? You have to imagine this huge red building in Piltover. That is Madada's, that's the Madada's building. But that building doesn't exist in this reality because Hextech doesn't get created and Mal Madada doesn't end up with as much power. And then more to the left of this shot, you'll see this huge hex gate, which just doesn't happen in this reality. That's kind of cool how it's missing. It shows that the Arcane writers are always thinking about these things. Small details make all of the difference. Ah, you're right. Yeah. Ekko created Jinx in this timeline. Then he gets back to his timeline and he saves his girlfriend. Yo, he comes clutch, guys. Yeah. This could have been bad, eh? Ah, this could have been a problem. He manages to save his gal. His gyal. From the fire. And he gets there at the right moment. It would have been weird if he was just standing there watching her, waiting for her to pull the trigger. So he arrives right on time. Buzzer beater. So Ekko pulls out the buzzer beater, reverses time, and he manages to save his girlfriend. She's shocked because she knows she pulled it and she's wondering what is going on. What I find really cool about this scene is that Ekko is bringing back time to right before she like pulls the grenade. Right before she lets it off. So she can somewhat feel herself tug at it and then it doesn't go off. And then she hears Ekko talking. And then she tugs at it again. And then she doesn't really follow through. And then Ekko speaks to her again. And Ekko's busy shouting, wait! So for Jinx, this scene plays out seamlessly. And the only thing that's not happening is the explosion going off. If you watch the scene with that in context, you realize how great this scene is. But it just needed more at the end. And we'll get back to that at the end of the stream. Alright, and then we see our boy Ekko managing to save the day, managing to save his gal, his girlfriend, his wifey. Pulls through clutch, and he says that clutch line, sometimes, you know, sometimes to take a leap forward, you gotta leave a few things behind. He manages to tell her that. He also gets smarter throughout this interaction. He says, yo, don't blow us up. And then once she sees that it's, wow, she's gonna blow up Ekko and he's literally smoking. And she knows that she was like tugging at the grenade, but she's not dying. And then there's a monkey device. She somewhat realizes, yo, there's something weird going on with this boy Ekko here. And let me just hear him out. I'm starting to get a little bit freaked out by what's happening here. Let me hear him out. Each time he rewinds time, his face paint gets removed. Yes, she also notices that his face paint is gradually just leaving him. So he manages to talk her out of blowing them up, and then she tries diving down. She says, alright, cool, I'm just gonna jump then. I'm not gonna kill you, but like, I got my own meeting with God that I'm about to attend, so peace. Boy savior, try saving this. And he does save her. And he hits her with the line. This was a great scene, but they should have finished it. They kind of finished it, but they should have finished it. As in, the next time we see these two characters, they are on the battlefield. And you're like, what? But how does this happen? Her sister couldn't save her, so how does Ekko save her? Weren't they just killing each other in this reality? How do they go from being arch enemies and ops? You know, when we talk about ops, how do they go from being ops to all of a sudden them pulling up on a hot air balloon with each other's paint on each other? I like this scene because, like I said, you can really see Ekko all over Jinx, and you can see Jinx all over Ekko in terms of the paint that they put on each other. You can see he's got X's all over him, and Jinx is not one of those X's. Not yet. Then the hot air balloon also has the firelights logo. I think I had another shot, a better shot of the hot air balloon. Yeah, it's got the firelights logo. It's got Isha's bunny ears on it. It's got Jinx's pink X's. It's got Jinx's clouds. It's got everything that makes Jinx Jinx. And it's also got some firelights on it. I think it was a really good touch. Here again, we can see the color of the paint. We can see Vi's hairstyle. I spoke about this in Schnee's video, so I'm gonna breeze past this. Here, okay, let me just webcam myself out just for a little bit. Here, if you look very carefully at her weapon, it's actually got the propellers from the hoverboards that the firelights use. So that green part, that kind of connects Pow Pow and Fishbones, her two old weapons, together. Yeah, that propeller part is from the Firelight's propeller. So her weapon is also, her new weapon is also filled with Ekko. And that's cute. Here's one that you probably missed when you were watching it. Here's one which is really sick. So when Victor is putting everyone into the weird timeline, bro, when he was putting everyone, not the weird timeline, into paradise, when Victor brings paradise into everyone's mind, you see 3 of those tendrils head towards the bottom scene. Now those 3 tendrils are specifically sent out for Ekko, Jinx, and Vi. Guess what happens to one of them? Jinx is charged up, and somehow she manages to dodge what no other character has dodged in this series. No other character dodged the tendrils. Everyone else got caught by these things. And what makes us so sick is that if she doesn't dodge this one ends up hitting Ekko. Because the one that was meant for her, she dodges, right? And we saw 3 of them. So 2 of them grabbed Vi and Jinx respectively. So the third one misses the boy Ekko. So even when the 2 characters aren't interacting like that, she does something which allows Ekko to do his job correctly. This was really sick, and the fact that I love how they don't make a big deal out of things like this. They kind of just show this for 2 seconds that, okay, there's 3 tendrils going down for all 3 of them. They never explain it. They never go back to it. But this is so smart. She took one for the boy. Someone worth doing it for. Someone worth building something for. This is the Jinx Ekko stream. This is the Timebomb stream. I like these 2 characters grouped so much. Even if it's not in their relationship format, I just think they work so well together. So from my perspective, if I was at Riot Games and I wanted to make money, because you know that these chats all come down to money, popularity, etc, etc. If I was at Riot Games and I wanted to make money, I would lean into what they've given us here with Ekko and Jinx. I think it's really cool. The next part of these characters being so deeply interlinked and so deeply tied, and the next cool part about what they do as characters is that when Ekko gets caught and he gets put into Victor's paradise, bro, the only thing that saves him is Jinx. Bro, she's in the sky. Look at the color scheme. Tell me that is not Jinx's color scheme in the sky. It's her hair and it's her eyes. The pink from her eyes and the pink that she uses, and it's her blue color scheme motif. And you can see the slight green hinting at Ekko himself. That's what gives him the courage to break out of this and save the day. That's what gives him the strength. Yo! Arcane once again implying a story for every other story it tells. Definitely. Love that. Yeah. Goated series. Goated series. Episode 9 was a bit of a mess because they needed more time. They needed maybe 45 to an hour more, 45 minutes to an hour more time, but other than that, goated series. So yeah, all of these small little nuances of the Ekko and Jinx relationship, you know what I'm saying? These two, just the tendril dodge by Jinx, clutch. Now it's clutch all of a sudden. Ekko just seeing that color scheme of Jinx in the sky, just being able to pull at his Z drive one more time, clutch. That saves the day. That gets the job done. Super epic. And then we see the boy Ekko kind of lamenting the loss of either Powder or Jinx. It's very interesting because the two characters end up being different characters. Mourning Powder here is not necessarily mourning Jinx. There's a little bit of a difference because of the alternate timeline thing that he goes through. And he's left alone. We can see that Madada building I was telling you about. It's here in this reality, that red building that's not there. I think it's the Madada building. And then we see the huge hex gate in the distance. And those are the two aspects that have somewhat robbed Ekko of his Ekko and Jinx ending. They've robbed him of Timebomb, bro. No Powder for this Ekko. And he somewhat just has to chill there and reminisce in the moment that once was, bro. He's there and his goal isn't because he failed to save her. Hey man, it took Ekko such a long time to realize that he likes this chick. He carves her, as we'd say in South Africa. He carves her. It took a long time for him to realize this. I feel like maybe if the boy had realized his real feelings for her a bit earlier, things might have been different. But actually, no. I'm wrong about that because the Arcane writers actually say they omitted a scene, which got me upset. They omitted a scene at the start of episode 1, at the start of episode 7, of season 1. They omitted the scene where essentially Ekko was supposed to find Silco's hideout. You know, he was somewhat taking in orphans, trying to build the firelights. He was trying to get his shit together. He builds the firelights. He takes in all of these orphans. He builds everything. And then he finally finds Jinx. He finally finds her. He thinks at this point that Silco has been holding her hostage as like a prisoner of war for all of Vanda's crimes. And then he pulls up. He's like, Jinx, I'm here to save you. And then she's just like, from what, nigga? Nah, you're not saving nothing. You know what I'm saying? That is kind of what was supposed to happen. And they omitted that scene, which got me upset. It got me a little bit tight because that would have served us a little bit better, you know? Anyway, moving on. This is what I promised you. So there's an artist, a Chinese artist. I'm not sure if he worked on the show or he was associated with it, but he somewhat did a lot of sketches, which I do feel give the show a bit more life. This would have been sufficient. This would have been worthy of being in the series. I like his take on what he did. So we've got the scene, you know, Ekko. Sometimes you gotta take a leap forward, steps back, blah, blah, blah. Jinx looks at him, sees the monkeys. She's like, whoa. Those are my monkeys. I know them. They're my signature. But why are those things pink? You know, let me listen to what this dude has to say because I'm clearly, something weird is happening here. So then Ekko takes this version of Jinx, the one who has now cut her hair and has somewhat rid herself of her Jinx identity. She is no longer Jinx, but she is deciding what she is for the narrative of the story. He takes her to the Firelight encampment and she finally sees it for the first time. And she can see not only this encampment, but she can see that the firelights are not just this organization based on fighting her and Silco for the first time. She sees the beauty behind it. She sees all of those dragonflies that are in that area, and she sees the huge firelight tree and how amazing it is. And she starts to realize that this was what the boy Ekko was doing the whole time. Then Ekko, you're gonna have to turn your head sideways for this one. I don't know why it's this way. You're gonna have to turn your head sideways, but then, or just turn the screen if you're on mobile. Instead of the memorial wall being a memorial, Ekko has taken the time before showing Jinx this. He's taken the time to change it into a what could have been wall. He's somewhat, like Schnee was saying in the video, he's changed the meaning of that wall, and he's moved it from being focused in the past for it to be focused on a future that didn't happen but could have happened. And it's the future that he experienced, and he's showing Jinx or Powder or whatever she has to, or whatever she ends up being in this moment, he's showing her that. And that is beautiful to me. And this is so touching and moving that she just looks up in awe, and she's taken away by this. He takes his moment to make his little move. Yeah, make your move, bro. You know what it is. Game is game. I gotta respect it. Game is game. And then he gives her a hug while she's in shock. And this is the moment where he would have saved her life. That other moment where they say like he saved her life, that was just like a precursor to what I feel should have happened. This is a much more beautiful moment where he shows her, yo, there's still something to fight for in this reality. You know, a lot of these people are still alive. We can still do something as Zon. We can still build something that's more beautiful than maybe what you think your life was about. And then he gives her a hug, and this kind of consummates this moment, and it just adds to it. Thank God for fan artists. Yep, definitely. Thank God for fan artists. Yep, this scene, yo, Jeremy, this scene is fire. This was what it was about. So he gives her a hug, and that somewhat ends the Jinx and Ekko dynamic, and they talk it over. You know, they discuss, okay, so what now? Alright, the firelights, let's show up at the battle. And you have a happy ending to a somewhat very complex, crazy relationship. And what happens from here is that when they show up on the battlefield, it normal feels so detached, and I guess they don't have to explain the painting thing in the scenes. I know he drew like them kind of, engineering everything, and them, adding the paint to each other. That never gets explained in the series, but the series doesn't have to do anything more to like consummate the moment when they show up on the battlefield. I keep saying consummate, but it doesn't have to explain the moment when they show up on the battlefield anymore, because now we know what happened. Now it feels real. And this would have been better. And this is like, bro, if you had just given us 3 minutes of this, the feels that people would have had. I think that ninth episode, something small like this, makes that ninth episode really go over a lot better with a lot of the people who criticized it, including myself. I think just this little bit of a splash of a bit more time bomb, and just making it all make sense why they were at the battlefield and whatnot. Oof. It makes you feel something, man. And that's what Arcane's about. Makes you feel something. And with that, I think that's the stream. Yo, I'm getting really good at hitting the 2-hour mark. I just want to find out from those of you who are still here. I still see there's a few of you left here. Like, how do you guys feel about the series Ekko and Jinx? This is the Ekko and Jinx part of the stream. We really needed one more episode. We did. We, you know, if we had just gotten just one more episode of Arcane, yeah, the series might have been a masterpiece through and through. But you know, I like the fact that it only really faltered towards the end, because it doesn't really feel like it stumbled or it faltered. It just feels like, well, it could have been a bit better, but it was really, really, really good. You know what I'm saying? It was tight. Yeah, it would have helped. No, this was really special. I, for one, do like the Jinx and Ekko dynamic. I think it's something that you can keep talking about forever. It's in the timeline of these characters now, and it's ingrained. And I think of all the relationships that I saw in Arcane, this one had the most meaning. You know, when you see Jace and Mel, you see someone who's somewhat manipulating Jace, but somewhat also has feelings for Jace. And then you see Jace, who's like this person who is still finding himself, has somewhat of an ego about himself as well. And then he's meeting this Mel girl who knows how to just work him and get him to do exactly what she wants. You know, and then you have the other relationship with Vi and Caitlyn, which always feels kind of dirty, because you know that the trade-off is that Vi is kind of trading her sister for like Caitlyn. So the Kate Vi, or the violin as I like to call it, I prefer violin. The violin one feels very, I don't know, it feels dirty, bro. Like even that scene, you know, the spicy scene where they have like where they hook up in the cell. That's mad, bro. Jinx was just having a depressive episode, saying she was gonna herself, and she just needed to get, you know, out of the cell so she could herself. And then Vi starts hooking up in that same cell. Like, what the hell is that? Like, what kind of family member? That's why I said, like, I'm not having Vi as like a family member in my life. I'm sorry. Like, she's a cool character and whatnot. She's headstrong. I like her leadership traits. I like other traits of Vi. She's got like her feminine energy, like, but like her boss feminine energy up. I like the tomboy energy where they don't try and make it like, I'm a boss, you know, that thing. But like Vi will really just mess you up. Vi's not on that time where she needs to say, I am a strong woman and what. Nah. Vi will just throw hands, bro. She's not on that time of waiting. I like that part of Vi, but like in terms of family, Vander could not save her. Vander kept telling her, protect the family. And the one thing she did not do in the series is protect the family. The family was always in shambles. Leave Vi alone. I'm on a head top. Facts. I had one. My rings have Ekko and Jinx engraved inside of it. Yeah, that's tight. She was a good sister in Act 2 though. She didn't understand what Jinx meant. Was she a good sister in Act 2? Hey man, I don't know. I'll leave that to the jury. To decide whether Vi was a good sister in Act 2. I think she was a better sister though. I think she started trying to figure it out. I don't know. Because like she starts Act 2 trying to kill Jinx. And then she realizes, I don't actually want to kill Jinx because I'm literally contradicting everything that I once wanted to do. I'm literally not protecting the family like Vander said, causing more problems. So, yeah. I don't know, I don't know. We'll leave that to the jury. He's your father too. Yeah, I liked those. I like those cute little, yeah, he's your dad too. You know, that was cool. She became a better sister, I agree. Yeah, she moved through it. She's horrible before that. She literally threw powder away. Now I understand that she wanted to come back and then Marcus kind of ruined it. You know, she was always gonna go back to Powder, but she threw her away. She didn't like say, okay, let's go home and talk about this. You know, big sister energy is like, alright, cool, you fucked up, so let's go back and let's chat about how you messed this thing up. You know, let's talk about where things hit the fan. That's big sister energy, not this thing of, alright, you are exiled. You know, like that was crazy, yo. What was that all about? Now I'm on Vi's head top, and I'll stay on Vi's head top. I'll drop a whole video on Vi, bro. Vi consistently just does random stuff, and she just breaks the verse, man. The verse would have been so cool without Vi, but that's not okay, and that's why she fits so well. I like Vi, but she's just a she's a menace, man. She's a menace, yo. Yo, Vi is crazy. Yeah, no, she dropped the ball. I think she's the real Jinx. Yeah, she is. She got that Jinx energy. She created the whole Jinx concept. She made that happen. She brought it into the world, and then she wanted to eradicate it. I think she even says something like that in Act 2. She's like, I created Jinx, so I must end it. It's like, what, bro? Like, that's your sister. That's your whole blood, man. What kind of family are you? You know, like, if your family's on a weird timing, I understand. Maybe you want to bring them to justice. Maybe you want to change them. But, yo, family is family, yo. Vanda would never accept such. Their mom? What was the mother's name again? I forgot their mother's name. Damn it. But their mom wouldn't accept it either. She would have checked Vi consistently. She is able to be a perfect sister in Act 2 because Caitlyn was out of her life at that time. Yeah. Act 2. Oh, yes. Act 2, not Season 2. No. You're right. I got a bit confused. Yes, Act 2. That's the vibe we wanted. Yeah, but she didn't start that way. She started Act 2 on smoke. She almost choked Jinx out. She almost murdered Jinx live action style, bro. I thought I was watching some other series, man. I've never seen someone get murdered like that in a series. You know what it reminded me of? I've seen it before. It reminded me of, if you've ever watched Game of Thrones, you know when the mountain gets hold of, what was that guy's name? Oberyn. Was his name Oberyn? He gets a grip on that like Persian looking guy's head. I think his name was Oberyn Martell. And then he just crushes it, man. Felicia's the mother's name. I'm forgetting everything. Yeah, Felicia's the mother's name. Yo, it reminded me of that when Vi was choking her out, and you could see like the pink. You could see like the pink from Jinx's eye come out. It was crazy. It was nasty work. Nasty. Yeah, but from that point on, they somewhat mend their relationship, and towards the end of Act 2 and even Act 3, I will admit that Vi somewhat, begins to take the steps to try and fix things with her sister. I think the problem is in her characterization. She doesn't know how to fix it. And I like that about her character. Some characters have to go through character arcs where you somewhat complete the character and you make the character change. It's like Vegeta changes a lot in Dragon Ball Z. You know what I'm saying? Vegeta progresses. He somewhat grows a bit. He learns how to love Trunks. He learns a lot of things in DBZ. But the boy Goku just stays the same, and that's who Vi is. Vi from episode 1 to the end just wants to throw hands with her enemies and keep the people she loves safe, but she never knows how to do this in a constructive way, and that somewhat tears reality apart. But this is the Jinx and Ekko stream, and that relationship, even though we might not see it a lot, I think Arcane made me appreciate the relationship a lot more. I won't lie, before Arcane, I did not care which character cares about which character likes which character. It didn't matter. But the way they somewhat built the backstory of all these characters, and they made Ekko and Jinx interact in childhood, and they grew them up to be rivals instead of partners, which was maybe the opposite of what some people expected. It's great, man. It's scintillating stuff. It's brilliant. And that's what makes the series so hardcore. Thanks for the stream. Yeah, this is a good place to end it. Yeah, definitely. This is a really good place to end it. Guys, thank you so much if you stuck with me throughout the stream. Also, thank you to the people who left. I know time gets busy, bro. We can't all be glued to a 2-hour stream like this. This was epic. I really like these two characters. That's why I did this. I just wanted to talk to some of y'all. This was a fire stream. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time when either a video drops or I stream again. Hey man, it was awesome having you guys here. And I'm out. Peace.